Welcome back. I'm excited today because I do have someone that speaks about a topic that is dear to my heart, which is ADHD. And I love Seth because I'm married to an ADHD genius. And so when we first started dating, I noticed he had like 100 ideas easily every moment. Like every time I met him, he had like a new idea, new idea. I was like, dude, how many ideas do you have? And I remember it got to a point where he had like more than 500 ideas a day. And I was like, you know what? Open a Twitter account, put those ideas there. I love you, but I don't have the head. And we tried to look for the name for this because I realized if we had to have this, it had to be funny and not something stigmatizing. And so I remember I came up with ADHD Genius and was like, yeah, and so when I met Seth, I felt like he did a good job helping us understand ADHD are not a disease, not a disorder. But I really think that ADHD people have more, even greater capabilities than us who think we're, single focus or whatever. But I also remember a story of my friend who has a child that has autism. And we were talking about how special those kids are. And she was like, by the way, who says we are the normal ones? They also look at us and they're like, what's wrong with these people? And so, to that same story, who says that if you don't have ADHD, you're the normal one? Maybe say the other way around. Like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you think about 100, things that go? And anyway, I'm excited for Seth because he lives and breathes this topic. And I want to bring him on to kind of dissect it properly because I feel like he knows a lot about how to thrive with ADHD and not be bothered by whatever the labels and stigmas and all of that are, because it's a super talent. You can either leverage it or it can put you down. So, like, which way are you gonna use your ADHD? It can be something that you thrive in. You can do abnormal things, but there's also a place where instead of doing extraordinary things, you're diminished to literally the words or the letters of the word. And so there's two people in this world, those that are thriving with ADHD and those that are struggling with it. And today we're going to understand how to move from the struggling bit to the thriving bit. Seth, welcome to the show. I'm super excited that you're here.
Thank you for that absolutely wonderful introduction and lead in. That is, and it when it comes from that heartfelt place, it makes such a difference,
It does.
and
It
it
does.
does.
Hmm.
And I mean, more than being just someone who coaches around ADHD, and I
Hmm.
mean, I am also someone who has lived with ADHD my entire life, and I'm also not just a coach. I'm a
Hmm.
board certified nurse coach. So I'm
Hmm.
bringing my whole background of nursing and all of my clinical experience and all of that clinical research to the coaching I do, which is really what brings all of it together to really just tie this all up so that I can do exactly what you said, just take the struggle away
Hmm.
and help people move from that struggle, bring that level of understanding and move towards thriving.
Hmm. Where did we live though? Like, what is the work that you do? And I know there's more things we've left that are amazing about you, but like, what did I leave out in bringing you up that is super important for the listener to tag along? What do they need to know before we dive in?
ADHD is such a complex problem,
Hmm.
and it is one of those things that comes with so much guilt, so much shame,
Hmm.
so much confusion, but from the outside world saying, well, you need to do things the way that we're telling you to do it, and inside your head going, well, none of these things make sense. Why do I need to do it that way when that doesn't make sense to do it that way? And you have these conflicts constantly going on. So I bring together all of the support systems that I was provided
Hmm.
from, fortunately, my parents, the school that I went to that was actually for kids with, it was a college prep school for kids with learning
Mm.
disabilities. So these aren't just random, these might help skills and tool sets. These are very focused skills and tool sets that were passed on to me from that learning experience, bringing all of my research there, but also I have a background in martial arts. I've been a martial artist at this point the majority of my life, and bringing the mentalities and skill sets that come from that and bringing that together to help pass those on as well, to truly help people understand how this all comes together. And I use all of that to really help create these mindsets, help create this understanding. And I honestly distilled all of that down into just three pillars where all of this is supported from.
Wow. So there's heritage going on. There's School of Hard Knocks going on. The man has been having and like living, breathing ADHD for the rest of his life. There is medical experience going on. My goodness. There is research. There is thought leadership. Tell me about the heritage part. Was any of your parents like an ADHD type of person?
Not diagnosed.
Oh, okay.
There are very clear traits that exist there,
Mm,
definitely on my dad's part.
mm.
Um, he he has never been able to sit down and watch a movie with us, like on family movie night. He There's always another thought where it's like, well, I'll join you guys eventually, and he'll
Mm.
come down and join us 20 minutes into the movie, and then maybe after another 45 minutes he goes off and does something else.
Mm.
There's a higher level of distraction, there's a greater difficulty of listening, and I mean, of course, that led to clashes between he and I, especially when I was a teenager.
Mm.
And teenager hormones, ADHD. It's not like I had the best self-regulation at that point either.
Mm.
So there was clashes between he and I. Our relationship is much better now.
I would love for you to take us through your journey with ADHD if you don't mind, because I feel like your story may be another person's permission to stop, I don't know, feeling pity for themselves and just know that this is like a
It
tool or something you can thrive in. If you don't mind, would you like to share your story?
Absolutely. It's it doesn't start off pretty.
Mm.
No one's struggle that leads to success is pretty at the beginning, right?
Mm.
When I was young, before when I like elementary school age, I never really realized that this was something that was actively impacting me.
Mm.
My parents were the ones that noticed, but in elementary school we had those desks where you didn't carry a backpack, you kept all of your school belongings inside the desk.
Mm.
I had zero organizational ability. Everything was just shoved in there.
Mm.
And my grades always suffered, not because I had trouble in school early on, not because I didn't understand the materials. And this is going back to elementary school, but because I wouldn't turn in assignments, because I would lose them at school inside my desk. And then I would have to redo them and I'd get points off.
Mm.
And then as I'd go through school, then I wouldn't be paying attention as much, or I would be talking in class. And then when we were carrying backpacks, I was the kid that lost my homework assignment in my own backpack because, again, I wouldn't use the binders, I wouldn't use the folders. Things would just be shoved in there and balled up and crumpled, and they'd get lost and then
Mm.
not turned in, or they'd get turned in late or torn. And so there was this negative impact, and then it started to make me feel dumb
Mm.
because I'm being told, well, your grades are bad. You're not getting it. You're not paying attention. You're not understanding it well enough. And especially as school advanced and went on, as material became more complicated, it became clear that in addition to ADHD, because ADHD very rarely lives in a vacuum, there's always a fun grab bag of other learning disabilities and neurodivergence that comes with
Mm.
it.
Mm.
One of mine is I always it always goes out of my head because ADHD, whenever you need the word, it's gone. But I struggle with symbols in with math.
Mm.
So math has always been difficult for it's like dyslexia, but for math, basically.
Mm.
Um, dyscalculia, that's the word, dyscalculia.
Mm.
But there's a little bit of that in there. Uh, so math has always been a struggle, especially algebra, and then pre-calc was just out the window because that's just all symbols. And when I had to take math classes, when I had to take physics,
Mm.
I worked with a tutor. I worked with a tutor 3 days a week.
Wow.
I and this was still when I was in public school. I went above and beyond, and that was on top of doing the homework. That was on top of doing all the reading. And I did everything I could to understand this material. Was still struggling because my brain just didn't get it. Barely got by. And then even when I went to the teacher and asked, I am not under and said, I'm not understanding this. What can I do? The response was, well, you're just not going to succeed and you're going to be stuck here with me.
Wow.
That was from the math teacher. The physics teacher said, well, you just need to study more.
Mm. That wasn't as bad.
Right. I was already studying on my own. I'm already working with a tutor 3 days a week, but I
Mm.
just need to study more.
Wow.
I hate the word just. I'll talk about that more, but I hate the word just and I hate the word should. Those
Mm.
are on my never word list.
Mm.
And because especially if you have ADHD, if you have any kind of neurodivergence, those are words that have shaped your life in probably the worst way.
Mm.
And my parents did clearly give me support. I mean, they got me the tutor, but also they got me all the support that was available in the public school system, which in the 90s wasn't a whole lot. You know,
Mm.
I had a word processor available to me to use in class to take notes because I also had dysgraphia as a result of ADHD. So my handwriting looked like chicken scratch. I couldn't read my own handwriting,
My goodness.
but it has become better because I've worked on it very hard, but that took years and years and years. But
Mm.
one of the accommodations that was made available to me was a word processor. But in the 90s, a word processor meant that it was a giant keyboard with a 1.5 inch by 3 inch screen.
Wow.
Yeah. That I would then have to plug into the desktop computer and save my what I had put into that word processor and transfer that over to a floppy disk
Wow.
to save my notes.
Oh my
And I had
God.
to and I
Where did
had to
we come from? My
and
goodness.
and I had to do that using DOS prompts.
Wow.
So, and yeah, I'm throwing out so many words that probably half the listeners out there are like, what is he talking about? But
I understand what you're talking about because I'm in Uganda, so we are like 10 years back. And so it really makes sense what you
yeah,
said.
but those are the accommodations that I received. I couldn't just use a laptop at that point
Mm.
because that wasn't a thing that was available. So from there, moved on high school, freshman year, scraped through, crashed and burned. Eventually, it was clear that there were no more accommodations that the public school system could provide. They actually said, well, we can just put you in special education classes. that wasn't an option. I was doing well in classes. I understood the material. They just couldn't provide the accommodations I needed.
Mm,
Fortunately, what the law says is that if the school system can't provide the accommodations, they have to pay for you to go where the accommodations are available.
mm,
So I ended up in a private school that was the prep school for kids with learning disabilities. And that's where I did 11th, 12th, 10th through 12th grade.
mm,
And it was a Quaker school. It was a friend school for kids with learning disabilities. That was also a college prep school. And that was amazing. And that was in the early 2000s. So it was, I mean, there were technology advancements. It was tech based. So every student had a laptop. The world opened up. There was sections of every curriculum that was focused on understanding yourself, understanding your individual learning disability because every student had their own things going on, and
mm,
then developing a plan to focus on strengths, focus on weaknesses every year, and move forward. And also, they encouraged you, because it was a Quaker school, to be involved, to have that level of equality, to advocate for
mm,
yourself.
mm. You didn't
So
feel
it
out of place anymore.
didn't feel out of place,
Mm,
felt that ability to speak speak to figures of authority and advocate for myself in a way
mm,
that was safe.
mm,
There was that fear went away, which served me very well later on.
mm,
And there's a lot that comes from referring to people by their titles.
mm,
Dr. So and so, Mr. So and so, Pastor so and so, and especially by last names.
mm,
But in a friend school, in the friends community, in the Quaker community, everyone is on a first name basis because everyone is equal.
wow.
So even though I had teachers who were PhDs, who had master's degrees, who were all over the spectrum, my teachers were Bill, Bob, Sarah. It it made everyone approachable, and it made advocating for yourself feel very comfortable.
Mm,
And that's something that I carried forward even into the medical field,
mm,
where I made a point to level that playing field. And there were some doctors, if I couldn't pronounce their first name, I did say Dr. So and so, but that was for my own sake. But I would say, hey, Adam, instead of Dr. Da da da,
mm,
because we are an equal part of the care team. And that served me really well through my career because I was able to advocate for myself. I was able to advocate for my patients much better because I brought us down to the same level.
mm. You didn't feel less than.
It was never less than.
Mm,
And that fear wasn't there. Those titles create fear.
mm. So then from this school, I want to go all the way to now where Seth is deciding this is his life soul work. Keep going, please.
So found found nursing as a passion.
Mm,
Went through went into nursing through having ADHD and my own series of poor decisions while I was young, have accumulated my own batch of injuries. So staying at bedside could not be a forever job. And I knew that. I knew that early on.
mm,
Being a bedside nurse is a very physical job. But even before the pandemic, I was trying to figure out what I wanted my next steps to be. I wanted to be able to continue to serve patients in a meaningful way, but in a way that wouldn't destroy my body. But I hadn't figured out how to do that. And then the pandemic hit.
mm,
I made a snap decision. I decided that the best idea was going to be to become a nurse practitioner, to make that step up to get a license, be able to prescribe, be more independent, to be able to serve patients in the way that I thought I could do it the way I wanted to. Halfway through that program, the full curtain on how the nursing industry works got peeled back. It was made clear that if I finished getting my nurse practitioner degree, it would mean more responsibility, more insurance coding, less pay, less time with patients, and less ability to serve them.
Oh.
At the beginning of this is not fortunate, but at the beginning of the pandemic, I had gotten
Mm,
long COVID through repeated exposures while working
mm,
in the hospital. In the middle of this NP program, I had some health complications come up that I needed to address. So I actually had to step back from the program.
mm,
That was the best thing that could have happened because it made me stop and think, do I really want to keep pushing forward just because of the idea of the sunk cost fallacy? I'm
mm,
already in, I've already paid money. And I realized, no, this is the worst idea possible. How can I actually serve patients and the community I want to serve in the way I want to serve them? And then I found the nurse coaching program
mm,
when I had taken that step back. I could still be a nurse. I could do everything that I wanted to do,
mm,
and I could do it in a way that was away from the bedside. I could do it in a way that wasn't controlled by the insurance companies. I could do it in a way that was truly meaningful and truly helped people
mm.
and wasn't just profit driven.
Oh.
Not, and especially not for some multi-billion-dollar industry that
Mm,
didn't care if they just drove me into the ground.
mm,
So I did the training. It was an additional 7 months of training, and then I got the board certification after that
mm,
and brought it all together, and then did a lot of hard work afterwards to really realize, how do I hone this down to help people in the most meaningful way, to figure out where does this come from me.
mm.
And that's how I've come to the point that I'm at now.
It's funny that you say the pandemic was a gift. Wasn't it a gift for most people? I remember I was chasing down this clothing line and I was dressing people, and there was a voice in my head saying, Prima, get online. And I was like, no way. Uganda, no power, no internet. Get online and do what? But there was this knowing that I had to be online and I had to do something with global audiences. And I was like, global audiences like me, Prima. And I was like, just stuck in my own head. The pandemic came. I didn't get COVID at that point, but it was impossible for me to have a bricks and mortar clothing men, because what did men do in COVID? Move around their houses in boxers, drink all the alcohol, and wonder why they married the person they married, because they'd never been in the same house with this person for
Mhm.
the longest time. And so, to your story, COVID was a gift, I think, to most people. It forced us to look on the inside and go, do I want to do this thing anymore? For me, I couldn't even make that decision. That thing had to be cut off, like, boom, now it's not here. Huh? So what? And I was like, okay, I guess it's time. What do I want? I think it was a
And
good time for people to look on the inside and kind of make decisions.
that's exactly it. I mean, for as horrible as it was,
Hmm.
I mean, you just really touched on it, and I think we both kind of touched on it without saying it,
Hmm.
is that it's the mindset piece of it,
Hmm.
because horrible things happen
Yeah.
and we can't undo them.
Hmm.
But there is the question of, how do we let them define us, or do we let them define us,
Hmm.
or do we embrace them as part of us and then choose how to move forward?
Hmm. I love that. I love
And
that.
that's really, I mean, that's really the piece that, like, that's where my story came from. That's exactly what you just touched on. Because yeah, it was terrible. It was horrible, but it's still part of all of us. And it has redefined how all of us have thought about these things. And it has made things ultimately better for so many people now.
Absolutely. I am very interested in your thoughts, leadership, and how you've come up with these processes to help your clients move from like struggling with ADHD to thriving. How would you like to take us through that process of even being afraid or not knowing yourself to a place where you own it and thrive with it? I think it's a very powerful way you're thinking through this whole ADHD thing.
That does come from a few places.
Hmm.
Part of it is actually that I am an alumnus of the National Outdoor Leadership School, which ties into something big that we can talk about a little later.
Hmm.
But I I did a full semester with the National Outdoor Leadership School. And so part of the leadership training that they do is filtered into the work that I do. But the three pillars that I have built up that hold all of this up,
Hmm.
it comes down to resilience, knowing yourself, and accountability. All of the skills, all of the understanding, all of the mindset work, and all of the tools are all upheld by those three pillars. Resilience is actually one of the easiest to build, especially when you have ADHD.
Hmm.
That's one of the hardest to understand because there is so much stress. There's so much anxiety. There's so much discomfort that comes with that state of not recognizing what's going on, or even if you have that late in life diagnosis and you get that diagnosis, you're like, it makes so much sense now. But then you have that point of now what?
No one.
because because it makes it all click,
Mm.
but now you don't know what to do about it. First, you need to recognize that resilience because something that is simple for someone who is neurotypical.
Mm.
Now, I'm not even gonna say that part yet. We build resilience by overcoming obstacles. It doesn't matter the size. We
Mm.
You overcome obstacles that makes you more resilient.
Mm.
The more obstacles you overcome, the more resilient you become, the bigger the obstacle you can handle.
Mm.
Someone who has ADHD overcomes more obstacles every day than someone who is more neurotypical, and they don't even realize it.
Mm.
Someone who is neurotypical who needs to wake up and get out the door on time to go to work, they set the alarm, they wake up, they go through their morning routine, and they get out the door on time because that is what they need to do.
Mm.
That's not something they have to really think about. They just do those things.
Mm-hmm.
If you have ADHD,
Mm.
your sleep pattern may already be altered. So waking up first, you might have to remember to even set that alarm. Second, you have to fight the fact that your circadian rhythm is going to be altered. You might be incredibly groggy when that alarm goes off.
Mm.
You might feel so tired that you might even feel sick when that alarm goes off. So you're going to keep trying to fight it. You might snooze that alarm 3, 4, 12 times.
My
So
goodness.
you're already running behind. Now you wake
Mm.
up. Do you have a routine in place? If you don't have a routine in place, ADHD craves chaos but thrives under routine.
Mm.
It's a giant paradox. And it's the same way that an ADHD brain does so much better in a clean, organized environment.
Mm.
But the ADHD brain wants that environment to be as chaotic and messy outside as it is inside their own head. It's a constant paradox.
Mm.
But now you have to get out of bed and now you have to brush your teeth, wash your face. Maybe you need to shower. How much time do you spend in the shower? Did you remember to brush your teeth? What did you think about while you were brushing your teeth? Did you get distracted? Do you have something on? Now you have to get dressed. Do you remember where your socks are? Do you have your laundry put away? Or is all your laundry in a doom pile that you have to go through? how late are you running at this point? Now you have to remember to eat breakfast. Did you actually go shopping to have the food in the house? It's a little different to get out the door.
I laugh so much because my husband likes his office. Like you enter and you're like, Jesus Christ. And so when he's there, I don't do anything. When he goes to bed, I sneak it and clean it. Then he doesn't complain the next day. So now it's a habit. I go in when he's sleeping and I just clean it and disappear. But if it were up to him, everything would be facing in the other direction and he would never touch it, which is crazy because he craves the freedom. But again, I think the organization kind of helps a little bit with.
Exactly. Exactly. It's you want the freedom, but you can't, but without having trained the systems to maintain the freedom, you spiral back down. So have the fact that you support him kind of on the tail end is what lets him do what he does without having to carry that extra mental burden. You've created a system that works for the two of you, but it doesn't work for everyone that way. For me and my wife, I have ADHD, she has ADHD,
My goodness.
and they are conflicting types. But this is what's really interesting. The research shows that people who are single with ADHD have more trouble staying in a relationship very often and are more likely to be divorced and remarried more times.
Wow.
Again, it also has to do with kind of that dopamine chasing that pattern, because you have the very high highs, the very low lows, and it's that little bit, that kind of impulsivity going in. It's like, well, I'll get it right next time. I'll get it right next time. You're not really kind of slowing down, thinking it through. This is where I come in, slow it down, like help you understand yourself, break it down a little bit. People who are in that ADHD and non-ADHD relationship are more likely to have higher levels of conflict. There is a higher likelihood of divorce because the non-ADHD partner is more likely to become frustrated, not understand that it requires a much higher level of understanding and compensation. When both partners have ADHD, there is a higher likelihood of success in the relationship because there is a higher level of understanding between the partners of where these issues are arising from. So there's generally a better level of communication. And even when that frustration boils over, there's better, they come together better at the end.
Better repair.
Exactly. Yeah, they're able to repair better. And I mean, this is what's supported by the research. It's a really interesting dynamic. And that doesn't mean that you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But it does mean you need to be aware. And this does kind of come back to something that I preach very heavily with all of my clients, is that just because you have a diagnosis is not a sword or a shield. It is a stepping stone for understanding for you personally. You don't get to use it as an excuse. You don't get to use it as defense. As soon as you are inflicting yourself on someone else, that is something that you need to take responsibility for.
Well, that can be hard.
It is, but I mean, that's part of understanding yourself. That's part of it. That's the biggest part of accountability.
Oh, so resilience is you're developing resilience even when you don't know, because it's just too much. Like you have to do 10 times more than the normal person who's not distracted. You have to try 10 times more to achieve the same result. Knowing you and kind of developing empathy for yourself and knowing your weaknesses and strengths so you can lean more into the strong areas. And then accountability is more like not using your diagnosis as a tool or excuse to not I don't know, to not take responsibility. What are we missing there? Is there anything else that we're missing there?
There is the other piece. So okay, that's being accountable to yourself.
Mm,
There's two side. There's two pieces to accountability.
mm,
There's the accountability to yourself, which is not creating the excuses,
mm,
not creating the defenses, not creating the excuses. And that's the only area where you can really be accountable to yourself.
mm,
Then there's how you set your goals, how you move forward. And every goal that my clients set are SMART goals. They are specific,
mm.
measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So I always have to I have to always think hard about what that acronym is. Um, but there's never well, I it's never just I'll write a journal entry. It's like, okay, what journal entry? How much? By when? Why?
Mm, mm,
Because now you have something specific to be accountable for. Clients who work with me, I'm part of that level of accountability because you're telling me you're going to do this thing by this time, and I can poke you and see, did you do it? Did you not do it? We can talk about how that turned out. We can talk about what hurdles you hit along the way if you weren't able to do it. But I'm not the only person that you can be accountable for. I tell everyone does better with an accountability buddy
mm,
because if you tell someone else, I am going to do this thing by this time, it can be a
mm,
close friend, it can be a spouse, whoever you know you can trust to check in on you
mm,
and say, hey, did you do the thing you told me you were going to do? And to be kind about it. Someone who is not going to be judgmental.
mm,
That's who you want to tell about it because they are the ones who are going to keep pushing you forward. Those are the people who are part of your inner circle. And it's the people who say, well, I'll just be accountable to myself. And I'm going to be really blunt here. Anytime anyone says I'll be accountable to myself, to them, I say bullshit.
mm,
Because if you were going to be accountable to yourself, coaches wouldn't have jobs,
mm,
therapists wouldn't have jobs.
mm,
No, everyone would be succeeding at everything that they ever wanted to succeed at. Because if everyone could just be accountable to themselves,
mm,
everyone would achieve every goal that they set out for themselves. Because
mm.
everyone would just do the thing.
That's a very good point because there is wanting to do something and there's you being a human being and just getting in your own way. I think that's a very good one. Just because you want to do it doesn't mean you will do it. Because if you
Yeah,
could do it, you know,
we're
probably would have already done it.
we're human. We
Yeah.
and part of it is the biggest lies that we tell aren't to other people, they're to ourselves.
Hmm.
Which is why we need to tell someone else that we're going to do something because we will make every excuse to ourselves for why we can do it later, why we're not going to get to it, why we're not able to do it.
Hmm.
Are those things true or are they just excuses? But you need someone else to hold you accountable to actually figure that out. Because if you're
Hmm.
just telling it to yourself, you already think it's true because you told yourself that it's true.
What are your parting words? And as far as the change that can happen when you get these tools and these systems and apply them to yourself, I want them to envision it and kind of step into it, if that makes sense.
Number one, I always put out there is no cure for ADHD. There's no magic bullet. There's
Mm,
no magic words. You will have ADHD. But if you are at a 9 or an 8, the goal is to get you down to a 6 and then maybe a 4 and then maybe a 2 and then keep you at a 2 as far as your symptoms and everything else and give you this this level of self-understanding to see all of your strengths and be able to lean into them and also recognize your weaknesses and play them down so that you can move forward and thrive and be the person that you want to be, with ADHD being a part of you, but not what defines you.
Wow. I love it. The most helpful thing you can do on this show is, one, think of one person who is struggling with ADHD. Just think of one person that ADHD has by the throat. Is it a friend? Is it a neighbor? Think about one person that you would like to gift with this recording. There is one person in this world that has ADHD and could use your help to get away and get a chance to thrive with it. And you as the listener becomes the vessel to transfer this message. So ultimately, the biggest, grandest gesture you can do for me, for the work on my heart, for the calling on my life, for Seth's work and what he's been called to do, is to pick one person in this world and share his message with that person. The person that you think if they had this message, their life would change. The person that you know, if they had this information, their marriage would change. The person that you know, if they had this information, they would be a better parent. Whose life can you touch today? It's a calling. Could you get in their private space, in their WhatsApp, and share this? And if you're watching this because someone shared it, this is because there is a string going on. And you don't want to be the person breaking that string. So please find one person that could use Seth's help and share. If we all shared with one person, Seth's work would impact more people than we can envision. And that is the vision of this podcast. There is someone going, I want to be a better dad. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better leader. But ADHD has me by the throat. And you're here because the how for that person is in Seth's heart. And you become the vessel today to deliver that how to the person. Will you pause and do that for me? Because that is the whole essence of this platform. My dream is that one day I'll bring on the operas of this world on this show as guests. And it's crazy because it's not that hard. There's one question I have to answer though. How big is the community? You're a big part of that. When you subscribe, when you rate, when you share, when you comment, when you share these messages, the community grows. I just need a couple of millions in the community and we can literally bring everyone, anyone that you want on the show. Whether we achieve that or not is totally in your hands. I am trusting you. I'm trusting the universe or the God that put this in my heart. And one day you and I will be celebrating everyone that you want on this show. You will decide in that moment. Appreciate you for today. I hope this has been helpful for you. I will see you in another episode with yet another speaker that has a message that is for another person. And hopefully you will do your part. Have a beautiful day. Seth, thank you so much for coming on the show. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so wonderful.
That is it, my friend. To this one, simply go to the world's best kept secret podcast.com and select interviews based on preferred topic.